we come to the actual production of a live show. Up to this point, we have talked about and configured many of the modules and inputs getting ready for a live production. In this section, we will cover basic switching techniques, using transitions, using the downstream keyers, fade to black, delegating the main T-bar, use of the MEs, and recording, streaming, and grabbing images, as well as sharing. Let's do a quick review of the interface. In the upper part of the interface, you have a multi-viewer showing you the external feeds and the internal media players. It also shows a big preview and program monitor. Program is what is being broadcast, streamed, and recorded by default. This is what the audience sees. The preview monitor shows what is currently selected on the preview bus, and this is what will go out to program if you do a cut, fade, or transition. Now below the multi-viewer is the live control area. This consists of the program row and the preview row, the T-bar, the transition control area, the effects presets, and the controls for the background layer transitions. It also contains the main switcher T-bar and the 4 downstream keyers or DSKs. You can show and hide the mix effects rows by using this button. Below that is the tabbed interface for access to the media players and the audio mixer. The 2 rows of buttons on the switcher are called buses. The program bus is the most important, as whatever is selected on this bus is what is going out live. It is possible to directly select channels on the program bus and cut to them. Even though this is possible, it's not recommended. For instance, switching directly to an ME is risky without seeing it first. Once selected on the preview bus, the input is visible on the preview monitor in the multi-viewer. Now you can see it before switching to it. You can also set up workspace presets to change the multi-viewer and preview all of the MEs at once if you like. Remember, you can configure any monitor to show any input or output, including the MEs. To cut to what is on the preview bus, hit the Take button in the background section. Notice that program and preview have switched places. Now select your next input on preview and hit the Take button. That is the basics of all switching: previewing inputs and transitioning or cutting to them. There are a few ways of putting something on preview. You can click on the input on the preview bus with the mouse, or you can select it on the control surface. Notice the green highlight denoting preview. This is on the input monitor, the bus rows, and on the CS. Notice the red highlight denoting program. So, put things on preview and cut to them. That's easy enough, but what about transitions? If you look to the right side of the bus rows, you will see the transition area. Let's start on the background controls. The background layer is whatever's happening on the preview and program bus and any transitions being used to go between them. It's all considered to be the background layer, and it's the bottom layer underneath the downstream keyers. Select an input on preview that you want to transition to. Click on the transition icon to open the transition presets in the background area and select Fade. Now hit the Auto button in the background area. Program will fade to preview. Now, open the transition presets and choose a different transition. Now hit Auto again. Preview replaces program using the transition you selected. These are the default transitions, but there are many more included with the TriCaster that can be loaded into any of these positions except Fade. Fade is always the first transition. 95% of TV is cuts and fades. Use transitions wisely. To change an effect, click on the preset to open them. Then mouse over any effect except fade. See the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner. Click on it. This opens the media browser, and now you have a selection of categories with transitions inside of them. Select the category to see the transitions. Click on one, select it, and hit OK. This Take an Auto button will only affect the background layer. Now you can control the speed of the transition with these preset speeds, or left-click on the speed number and either scrub or type in a custom speed. You can also set the transition to ping-pong or run in reverse. Ping-pong means it will change direction each time it runs. This is done automatically for any transition in a DSK or on an overlay. As you can see here, this trajectory runs forward the first time and in reverse the next time. These settings are per effect, so each transition can have its own settings. You can also select the effects loaded into the presets by using the Select knob. Pressing this knob like a button toggles the reverse mode on and off. Speed can be dialed in by using the Rate knob on the control surface, and pushing it like a button cycles through the preset speeds available. The T-bar also works for manually running transitions and fades, but it can also be delegated to run effects and DSKs at the same time or independently of each other. You can select what will be controlled by the main T-bar by using the buttons here. This T-bar can do background transitions, fade to black, or control any of the downstream keyers. Try this exercise. Make sure that the main transition delegate is set to background here. This means that the main auto button on the interface under the T-bar and the main transition auto button on the control surface will only affect the background layer. Start on an input and cut to another, then fade to another, then transition to another, select a new transition, and auto to another, then fade back to the original input. Now you are running a more complex production with cuts, fades, and transitions. Let's place Program and Preview on ME1 with the Metropolis set on the center shot set up in ME1. This is our background layer. To the right of the background controls are the 4 downstream keyers. These DSKs allow you to create overlays on top of the background. Now, as you look at the interface, you see the order of the layers. Background is on the bottom, DSK1 is on top of that, DSK2 is on top of DSK1 on the background, then DSK3 is on top of all of those, and DSK4 is on top of everything. Let's set up some graphics into some frame buffers to work with. Now, a frame buffer is like an empty folder that you can send an image or a title template to. Then it can be accessed by the system for use during a live show without being used in a media player. There are 9 frame buffers available for use in this TriCaster. There are the main frame buffer available directly on the main switcher, and a frame buffer for each mix effects row. Now, even though each ME has direct access to its frame buffer on its switcher, any frame buffer can be used in any keyer or downstream keyer. Load up the title template High-Tech 005. Mouse over the icon and click the gear to open the edit panel. Left-click once on the text line. The text line highlights. Hit the delete key to remove the text and press enter. Now repeat this process for line number 2 and click close. Now right-click on the icon and choose Send to ME1 Buffer. This copies the image into the frame buffer for ME1. Load up the NewTek logo with Alpha Channel in Graphics 2. Right-click on it and send it to frame buffer ME2 Buffer. Load up the TriCaster logo in Graphics 2. Right-click on it and send it to frame buffer ME3 Buffer. Load up the title template Metropolis 005 and click on the gear to open the Edit panel. Click on the text and it highlights. Type Live in all capital letters and hit Enter. Now, left-click on the image and choose one of the headshots included in the NewTek content. Click Close. Right-click on the template again and send it to frame buffer ME4 Buffer. Once all of the images and templates have been sent out to their respective frame buffers, they can be removed from the media players. To make changes to anything in a frame buffer, you need to modify the image or template and resend it to that buffer. The frame buffers are also available on the network, so people outside of the TriCaster could change out what is in the frame buffers from across the network. To do that, make sure Share Frame Buffers is checked here in the TriCaster pull-down menu. You can also share your media folders across the network in the same way. Swapping out a still graphic in a frame buffer across the network during a live production should be no problem. However, if you are already heavily taxing a drive, for example, playing back 2 streams while recording 2 streams to it, you should be careful about copying files to or from that media drive using shared media folders across the network during a live production. Each DSK or downstream key can use any input coming into the TriCaster as a source. You can use this pop-up to select the source for DSK1. Let's select frame buffer ME2 Buffer, which is the NewTek logo. Now, let's select Graphics 2 for DSK2. This will be the TriCaster logo. Each DSK has a Take and Auto button with a selection of transitions. Hit Take on DSK1. You see the NewTek logo. Hit Take on DSK2. Now the TriCaster logo is right on top of the NewTek logo. Notice the layers. DSK1 is under DSK2. The background is underneath both of those. You have the ability to scale and position both of the downstream keyers. Right above the Take button on each of the DSKs, there are double arrow crosshairs. These are the positioners for the DSKs. Click on the positioner for DSK2. Notice the graphic appears on preview. This happens even if the DSK is not turned on. Hit Take on both DSKs to turn them off. Now, click on the positioner again. By clicking and dragging on the magnifying glass, you can scale the DSK. And by clicking and dragging on the crosshairs, you can position it. Scale is locked, as scaling on one axis would distort the image. But you can do this by unlocking the constraint here. You can also click and drag on just X or Y in the positioner for moving just left or right, or just up and down. Position the DSK in the upper left-hand corner. Close the positioner on the DSK. The DSK on preview disappears. Hit Auto for DSK2, and the graphic fades up right where you placed it on preview. Being able to set up graphics on preview before you take them live allows you to preview the final shot while you're in the live production, but not affect what's happening on program out. Let's choose a transition in the DSK2 Effect presets, other than fade, by opening the presets and clicking on it. Hit Auto. Hit Auto again. See how it automatically ping-pongs, running in one direction the first time and the opposite direction the next time? Try running a few effects to get the feel for it. Now, set up DSK1 the same way. Open the positioner and scale and position it into the lower right-hand corner like this. Try out a few transitions and find the ones you like. Choose a different transition on DSK2. Now you can fly each overlay in by themselves with their own effects. The control surface has individual take and auto buttons for each DSK. Try bringing the overlays on and off screen using these controls. You can even push the auto buttons for multiple DSKs at the same time. Positioning the graphics from the control surface is also possible. In the positioner area, select DSK1. Select Position and Scale. Now, use the joystick to adjust DSK1. Twisting the joystick scales the DSK. Moving the joystick positions it. Now select Rotation. Twisting the joystick rotates the DSK on one axis, and moving it rotates it on the others. Hit the Reset button to reset the rotations. The Reset button on the control surface only resets the currently selected modifier. Notice it only reset rotation, not the position. Now reset Position and Scale. Another nice technique is to use one effect to bring a DSK on and the opposite effect to take it off. This effect brings in the graphic from the left. Running it again flies it off to the left. This effect does the same thing, but from the right. Use one effect to fly on, and then change to the other effect before flying off. There are also a variety of soft edge transitions that work very well with DSKs. I'm going to choose a title template in Graphics 2, and I will turn off the positioner for DSK2. To do this, open the positioner and hit Reset, then close the positioner. Let's choose a nice soft edge wipe. Mouse over the transition that you wish to replace and click on its plus sign. Go to the Edge category. You see at the bottom there are soft edge transitions. Choose L to R with S in parentheses, which stands for left to right, soft edge. Now hit Auto for DSK2. Try out lots of transitions to find your favorite way to reveal and hide graphics. The DSKs in the TriCaster can use any external input or media player as a source. Let's select the Digital Disc Recorder 1 as the source for DSK4. We will load a video clip of a motion graphic with alpha channel or transparency into an empty preset of DDR number 1. This will be the moving video overlay on top of the background video. You see this a lot on TV. Now, in the DDR, we will load this clip. Make sure the DDR is not in loop mode. Make sure single is on and autoplay is on. This can be done from the interface or here on the control surface. On the control surface, select DDR1 as the media player, and single and autoplay can be turned on and off here. Single sets the DDR to only play the selected clip. Autoplay will automatically start the DDR when it is selected on Program Out or when it is used in a DSK and that DSK is activated on Program Out. Now we have the DDR1 as the source in DSK4. Since the DDR is set to autoplay, with the DDR selected in DSK4 as the source, hitting Take or Auto on DSK4 will autoplay the DDR and start the clip playing. Now we see full motion graphics superimposed on the background. You could also use a transition in the DSK to fly this on or off the screen. You could also bring in graphics through a video input with a green background and key them and use the live input as a source in one of the downstream keyers. You can even use a green screen talent shot that's been keyed to put that as an overlay on the background. Scale and position them wherever you want and fly them on and off the screen. Each media player has a set of controls to help you get the most out of the media player during a live show. Let's start out by looking at the DDR. At the bottom of the DDR interface, you have stop and play buttons. The buttons on either side of these are the Go to Previous and Go to Next clip buttons. These can be used to select a clip in the playlist. This does change the output of the DDR to whatever clip is going to be currently selected, so don't do this while the DDR is on live output. Next, there's a loop control. If the single button is on, this will loop the selected clip only. If the single button is off, it will loop the whole playlist. If the loop button is turned off with the single button on, the DDR will play only the selected clip and stop on the last frame of that clip. Now, if single is turned off, the DDR will play through all the clips in the list, starting with the currently selected clip. Autoplay will automate the process of using the DDR or any media player. If autoplay is off and you transition to the DDR, you will see a still frame of the first frame of the selected video clip. If autoplay and single are on and you transition to a DDR, it will start playing before it is on program out. If you let it continue to play, at the end of the clip, it will transition back to whatever is on preview with whatever transition is selected, and it will select the next clip in the DDR playlist for playback. To play the next clip, simply transition back to the DDR again. There's also a speed control. The DDR can be set to play back from 25% to 400% of full speed. This will control the speed of the DDR playback, but this is not true slow motion. This just slows down the playback of the DDR. It does no interpolation. To get smooth playback and slow motion video, we recommend a NewTek 3Play. 3Play will give you multiple channels of instant replay and world-class interpolated slow motion. And you can bring the output of 3Play in through the TriCaster's network inputs. Now you can also edit the in and out point of a clip in the DDR. Each clip has handles on the left and right side of the scrub bar. Moving these handles sets the in and out point. The video scrubs as you set the handles so you can see where you're setting the in and the out point to. There are also mark in and mark out buttons on the control surface, allowing you to trim the clip directly from the CS. This allows for large clips to be brought in and chopped into smaller clips right inside of the DDR. You can scrub the clip using the scrub bar. During playback, the scrub bar by default will change color. It is blue when there is more than 10 seconds of video left. It turns yellow when there is less than 10 seconds of video left in the clip, and red when there are less than 5 seconds of video left in the clip. This is a nice visual cue that your video is ending. The counter by default is set to a countdown. When a clip is selected, you see the duration of the clip. As the clip plays, this number counts down to 0 at the end of the clip. This also holds true for the entire playlist if single is turned off. With single on, I get the duration of each clip. With single off, I get the duration of the playlist when starting from the selected clip. By right-clicking on the numbers, you can make it count up instead of count down. Turn off the warning colors on the scrub bar, or turn off playlist duration so you only ever see clip duration. There are also controls available for each clip by right-clicking on the clip within the DDR playlist. These controls include cut, copy, paste, remove, and clone. There is a display name option which will change the name displayed in the DDR only. It will not affect the actual clip name on the hard drive. There's also a control for that clip's audio level, including mute. This is very handy as you can set the audio levels up on a clip-by-clip basis, meaning less audio mixing during the live show. You can also remove a clip from the DDR by selecting it and hitting the delete key on the keyboard. This only removes the clip from the DDR. It does not affect the clip on the hard drive. The same goes for the remove option on the context menu. So in a live production, let's say you want to transition to the DDR and play one clip and then come back to the live talent. Go to the DDR and select the clip you want to play. Turn on single to play only that one clip, and autoplay to automatically start playback when the DDR is brought to program. Make sure that loop is off and speed is set to 100%. Shift double-clicking resets most parameters in the TriCaster to their default values. With the live talent on program, select the DDR on preview. Choose a background transition and hit auto. The clip plays. When the clip is done, it transitions back to whatever was selected on preview with whatever transition was currently selected. Let's try transitioning to the DDR, and while it plays, selecting a new input on preview and a new transition for the background. When the clip finishes, you are transitioned to the new input with the new transition. During a live production, you may not want the tabs to follow what is selected on preview, as this may switch you away from the DDR during playback. To turn off this behavior, go to the TriCaster menus, under Options, and uncheck Tabs Follow Preview for all inputs, and Tabs Follow Preview for MEs. This stops the tabs from switching to what is currently on preview. One option I like to leave on is Tabs Follow All Delegates. This means any ME or media player delegated on the control surface will have its associated tab displayed. Remember, in this mode, you will need to manually select an ME setup tab or delegate it on the control surface to modify that ME during a live production. The autoplay, single, and loop controls work the same for both of the graphics players. Autoplay with single can play a single still for a selected duration, or with single turned off, you can play slideshows. Right-clicking on a still or a title template also gives you options including cut, copy, paste, remove, clone, display name, and duration. You can also set the duration of multiple images at once. Multi-select some stills by left-clicking and then dragging a box around a few of them. Now right-click on one of them and select Set Duration. The default duration for stills is 15 seconds. The time is displayed as hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. Type in 10.00 and hit Enter. This will be input as seconds and frames. Notice that all of the selected clips are now 10 seconds. One last thing to be aware of with autoplay and the media players. Let's say you are on ME2 using a virtual set. On that virtual set, you have DDR1 set as the input on the B row for the on-screen monitor within that virtual set. The DDR is not playing yet, so it is a still of the first frame of the video clip in the DDR. Autoplay is on for that DDR. When you switch to DDR1, it does not play. Why? Because it was already on screen within the virtual set. Switching to it kept it on program out, so no change occurred as far as autoplay is concerned. On the other hand, suppose I am on graphics 1 on program, and on preview I have ME2. Inside of ME2 is a virtual set with DDR1 feeding the on-screen monitor. The DDR has autoplay on, and when you transition to ME2, the DDR in the on-screen monitor starts playing. So whether you are switching to DDR or an ME with a DDR used within it, it's the same to autoplay. If the player is on screen as any part of the input, it is considered to already be on program out, and autoplay works accordingly. The main T-bar in the switcher can be delegated to perform different tasks. The delegation on the interface is done by clicking on these buttons. It is done on the control surface by using these buttons. Select background. Hitting the main auto button or using the main T-bar now does a background transition. Delegate DSK1 to the main T-bar. Notice that preview changed. This is a true look-ahead preview that will always show you what the end result will be when hitting auto or pulling the T-bar. With DSK1 delegated, the background video will not change. Only the DSK will be brought on, and that's what you see on preview. Hit auto. Now delegate background and DSK1. You can hold Control and click on both items, or on the control surface, press and hold background while pressing DSK1 to add to it. Now on the preview monitor, you only see the background because you will get a background transition and remove the DSK with that one operation. You can delegate background and up to 4 DSKs all at one time. This same delegation technique works for the mixer in an ME using the ME controls on the interface or on the control surface. There is a delegation button on the switcher in the interface and on the control surface labeled FTB. This stands for Fade to Black. Clicking this button will delegate Fade to Black to the T-bar. When executed, this will fade all audio and video. You must remove this before resuming normal switching. If you delegate Fade to Black and auto, everything goes black. If you now choose background, notice the preview is still black. Performing an auto does nothing, but the Fade to Black button blinks. This is a visual cue telling you Fade to Black is currently active. To get back to normal switching, delegate Fade to Black again and auto again to remove it. Now delegate background and you're back live. In the streaming and recording setup videos, we discuss setting up recording, grabbing images, and streaming. During a production, to start recording, hit the record button. You will see it highlight and the time code numbers will start to roll. You can also hit the record button on the control surface here. The same thing goes for streaming and the streaming button. Images can be grabbed with this button on the interface or this button on the control surface. Setups for all these features are accessed with the gear next to the button, and this process is covered in the streaming and recording module setup sections.